My dad was still not was not convinced at all, but I took the leap of faith and said I'm going to do this and make it happen. When he discovered that obviously some money had been invested in this, I was hauled up to Bombay and I was blasted. I remember at that point, and really given a shelling. But you pander to the love of a parent and you sort of agree on a timeline. And the timeline agreed with him was 75 lakhs to 1 crore is stop loss amount and 4 years of my life. If these two things sort of happen, then let me do this. And it was a bit like that movie, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, right? And then my dad turns around and says, Simran, jile teri
Right.
zindagi. One of that kind of stuff that happens on it. So one must know how to. One thing with parents always is that ultimately kids have their way.
Hey Mithun, hey Avnish. Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. Looking forward to the chat.
Thank you for having us over.
Thank you for having us here, Aviral and Mazin.
Super inspiring journey, but we start with a curveball, which is what is one truth few people agree with you on? Mithun, Avnish, both of you can go on this.
As in, we agree on that, or
No, you individually, and nobody else agrees with you on. Maybe not even Mithun for you, Avnish. If any one of you have an answer, you can start. That's
Okay,
fine.
I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Um, Most people don't agree with the fact. I mean, the truth really is that the perseverance of the team is what makes things happen. And
Hmm.
most people believe it's the banner that, or the strategic partnership with Titan is what made it happen.
Hmm. This specific
so
for
you
you.
mean about the company?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I think that's
Uh,
helpful. It can be about the company. It can be about life, philosophy, anything interesting.
so
Okay.
actually, about the company, there is one truth which I'm struggling to convince everybody about, because everybody tells me that the our data structure, the analytics system which we have is very messy, and it's very hard to make it simple that you can get the data immediately and you can do the analysis, etc. And I keep telling them that the reason it is messy is because we want to measure every variable which is important,
Right.
which is why you are measuring 5,000 variables on 100 different platforms.
Right.
That is helping you understand the business more. So the messiness is directly proportional to the understanding. So you have gone after all the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns, but that will create complexity and messiness. So you either say I will have a simple system which will help you understand less of the business, or you say this messiness is like the side effect of a larger, deeper understanding, and therefore we should embrace it and we should be happy when it is more messy, because messiness means we know more about what is happening in our business.
Right. Hmm. And
So that
philosophically,
I
any
think that philosophically I feel ki the biggest power is consciousness.
okay.
If you have consciousness, then you can you just become unbeatable, because you will not have any weakness,
Hmm.
because in that moment you know what you're doing, and all these biases and everything you can deal with that if you have very, very high level of consciousness.
Hmm.
Because that they say, right, the difference between how you act and that impulse is what makes you powerful, right? Because you don't react immediately. I think all of that comes from consciousness, but I think I don't know whether we'll get to that level, but it's just that you are itna zyada sorted, you can't be manipulated, you will not make these mistakes or any of those things, or you don't fall prey to impulses and biases.
Mithun, what about
That
you?
Consciously paranoid, right? And so that's where we sit with this whole thing. Yeah.
I understand. Um, can you talk through the early days for the two of you? I know you've had different origin stories, and then they converge together later in life. But would love to like talk through early days, growing up, any entrepreneurial ambitions you harbored, or was this something that just happened organically? Um, if you could touch upon that.
A comes before M, so I guess Avnish goes first.
So actually, I come from a place where we were only encouraged to either write the civil services exam,
Okay.
coming from Bihar, okay, and or you should have gone into an IIT IIM kind of situation. There was
Right.
no other life choice in life, and I'm sure you can possibly relate to some of it, Aviral.
Yes. You
Yes.
you can be
So
anything you want. Choose between an engineer and a doctor.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah, or
completely
the civil
understand.
services. I don't
Yeah,
know whether
civil
you are the
services.
civil services generation, but a lot of my older cousins are civil servants. So that was definitely a path, and I was super motivated to do that also.
Right.
So finally, after I, even when I was doing my MBA at IIM Lucknow, I was not very sure of what I wanted in life, but you were just going with the flow कि हाँ ये अच्छा life हो जाएगा इससे. Finally, after many job changes, etc., I ended up in this company called DuPont.
Okay.
And I thought I have finally got to the place where I should have gotten, because everybody always told me that if you get into a US MNC, then you're set.
Right.
And that is when I started to realize, ki, boss, it was like a super boring job. You know, uh, as in, nobody would call you on weekends. 6 o'clock, you were done. Your boss would politely say, "Can you wait for an extra half an hour after 6 o'clock because we want to discuss this." Shuruma, it was all nice, but then you started to realize, na, ki, will my life just end like this? And you would meet a lot of people who had been in that company for 15 years, 20 years, and would be very happy with that.
Right.
At this point in time, I there were a couple of other things which are happening in life. One, that my wife and my a good friend of mine were working in Bharat Matrimony. They would go to office on Saturdays, work late and all. And the kind of conversations they would have, I would feel that this is so much more interesting. So that was one thing. I had always wanted to get into a retail business. I had tried. There was one interview which I screwed up, and you always have the situation, you don't have relevant background, right?
Hmm.
So I always wonder कि relevant background कैसे आएगा if you don't get a chance, right? uh, and then and then obviously there were startups and all had started to happen. This is around 2005, 2006. So there were these underlying forces in my life, okay, but I was not like I was waiting to get into a start something or anything. So when I got to meet Mithun and Gopal, okay, and this is 2007, and they were telling you, okay, we want to start selling jewelry online.
Hmm.
And by the way, I used to blog at that time very actively, so I was kind of starting to appreciate the power of the internet in some sense.
Right.
That was another underlying dynamic in my life. So when this happened, right, and there was every reason not to join, right, but I feel ki one is that these reasons were there where I was wanting to do something different in my life, and this interest in internet retail, what these guys were doing in Bharat Matrimony, played a role. And I think it also some ignorance helped, because there were a lot of other people which Mithun and Gopal had met who didn't join, and I would always wonder, like, did they know something because of which they didn't make this choice? Am I the for the longest time I used to feel like ये गलत decision ले लिया क्या?
Huh.
And even when you ask people ki whether I should have done this or not, nobody knew anything, right? In 2007, if you ask somebody ki should I make this choice or not, right? Who would you ask? Like, who in your family and even friends and batchmates and seniors and juniors? So in some sense, the lack of knowledge or the ignorance was a good thing back then, at least.
Hmm.
And I think I also thought ki it was like a fork in the road moment, where if you wanted to change your life, right, sometimes there were people who were doing their second MBAs and all. I had considered that also, but then I thought that this was a better choice, that if it worked out, great. If it didn't work out also, at least it will open up other possibilities. And what is the worst thing which will happen कि ये 2 साल में बंद हो जाएगा, you will go back.
Right.
So in that sense, it was not, to say I want to become an entrepreneur, honestly, but this was a good opportunity. And given some of this background, mein, whatever was going on in life, it just seemed like the right thing to do at that point in time in my life. And I thought, ki, theek hai, let's see how it goes. And honestly, I didn't know anything about jewelry or retail or internet or product management or any such thing. And I was not interviewed about it. Luckily, in the interview when Mithun spoke to me, and I don't know what he was thinking. We spoke for an hour and a half, and we only spoke about sports and internet and blogging and all of these things. Which is why I tell people you should have some interest, because sometimes those things help you in some situations like this.
Right.
Yeah, so that is how I got into it, and I'm very glad, because my life changed after that. I complete you they ये थोड़ा global statement लगता है,
Hmm.
but I can say for myself that I kind of discovered myself after I came into CaratLane.
Understand. What about you, Mithun? What's your story? How did
Yeah,
everything start?
unlike I come from an entrepreneurial family. So everybody is in business. We are uneducated lot, by nature. I mean, and so when you're uneducated Marwadi family, you basically end up in some form of trade.
Right.
कुछ ना कुछ धंधा करोगे तभी जाके आगे बढ़ोगे उसमें. My parents had moved to Bombay in 74 and built a jewelry business from that point on by themselves while there was some lineage etc, but that's they built completely all by themselves. What used to stress me out is seeing the amount of hard work they put into work and the skill set that my mom had as well. She's incredible at what she does, and she built this business, Jaipur Gems, with my dad playing this perfect support in terms of finance and managing the overall infrastructure and everything else. So
Right.
both of them are like crazily dedicated. Our childhood, you know, पहले बचपन में कैसा था, बड़े बच्चे अपने आप बड़े हो जाते थे.
Hmm.
Parents really didn't have to do so much about it. Not like the way we are so super involved in our kids these days. They were not like that. And our result day, whether good or bad, did not decide whether we did well. It decided कि उस दिन धंधा कैसे हुआ था. That decided कि आज मार पड़ने वाली है कि
नहीं
नहीं
होगा.
पड़ने वाली है
हाँ.
उसके अंदर, on that. So terrible. I mean, I was an average student, got through average. Got through college. I was in Sydenham in BCom, and that was also just an average education, frankly. And started stressing me out at that point कि करूँगा क्या? Because I didn't feel I had the skill sets my mom had. Because at that point, jewelry felt like drawing more. Designing felt more like drawing. It didn't feel like construction
Right.
at that point. And it was very, very stressful. And it's only later when I went to study gemology and jewelry manufacturing did I understand that ऐसा भी कुछ कर सकते हैं, and I'll get a better sense of the business as well also, because there was really I had no skill set, and if with my education I went to get a job तो मतलब 10,000 रुपए की salary मिलती, it would have been that bad. There was just nothing. So 2 years of internship working in a in somebody's company in my second year and third year of BCom, and then after California to do this. And when I came back, I realized, came back to India, I felt like I could do this because wahan par I was doing some entrepreneurial activities, which were more like doing brokerage to earn a little more pocket money on the weekends and stuff. We would basically take solitaires from wholesale guys who would work Monday to Friday, and retail in America was more a Saturday Sunday business. So pick them up on Friday because of knowing some family connection, and leave them in the retail areas on Saturday Sunday, and hopefully something would sell and I'd make a commission on that.
Right.
And Sunday night drop it back to these guys. So inventory which was lying idle for them was working for them in some sense. And the job I had to do was commute between LA to San Diego
Hmm.
and sort of make that happen. So I learned a little bit about trade and gave me confidence basically in doing something. Came back to India and thought, we're going to go there, went to work, and like and it came to me a little later in life. If you guys have seen the movie Paheli,
Yes.
uh, everybody, a Marwari kid has to go out of the house into some other place to start business.
Hmm.
Because your own family ka business itna hi hai ki that take care, decision makers are already there.
Right.
There's no need for you.
Right.
You're like a matinee show over there. You're disguised unemployed. You can go there, have lunch and come back, but you'll never make a decision because parents are very young. Brother is young as well also. Parents were in their mid-40s at that point.
And you have
So
an
there was
elder
nothing I could
brother?
do. I have an older brother, 3 years older.
Okay.
So there was an opportunity coming up that we had bought this space in Chennai, and I just put my hand up and said, I'll go to Chennai and set that up. So I came to Chennai to build Jaipur Gems, which was the extension of our family business in Bombay.
So you were
And
entrepreneurial by nature.
यार option ही नहीं था.
अच्छा.
Because
पर आपने, I mean, you thought of all this, right? I'm guessing that this level of maturity and thinking, while you mentioned that you felt like you were in a situation where you were going nowhere, the thought process was pretty forward looking.
everybody does this.
Understand? Okay.
Basically. The only difference I made was that I left town and went to another town and started very early.
Understand.
So what happens? You end up throwing yourself in the deep end
Right.
without much thought.
Right.
At 21, how much are you thinking?
Right. Hmm.
Right. I mean, you're really not thinking all this and doing that. So that was a stroke of luck that I decided to do that. And frankly, that luck also happened because I was dating somebody. And if I had to marry a out of community girl, the only way to do that was that you really अपने पैर पे खड़े हो तब जाकर के कुछ होगा लाइफ में.
Hmm.
Otherwise, no way,
Hmm.
you're going to get anywhere.
Hmm.
So that was the motivation as well to do all that at 21.
Right.
So I ended up moving to Chennai and working towards it and started like I remember what a disaster it was to begin with. And and then the thing with entrepreneurship is it fuels more things in your life. Um, every goal that you set is nothing but a
So
milestone
yes.
actually,
Hmm.
and फिर वो बढ़ते जाता है आगे and you keep increasing that. And so that's how Jaipur Gems became one from ground floor to added first floor, then added Coimbatore. Then you realize that hey, this is very slow, so you got to change something else about it. And that's how CaratLane happened for me as well as a thought. And then I met Gopal, and then we Avnish and me and Kalai, four of us started working together to build this out. So one thing leads to another, and that's what happens
So
basically. But I think
you compress a lot. Can
uh,
you expand on that? So how now this is a very unique situation because you've become an entrepreneur inside your family business. You've started out
yeah,
separately, and now you are in this situation where you probably have started to have a new idea which could potentially
yeah.
even compete with your family business. What was the thought process there? How did you convince your parents? What did you tell them? वो क्या हुआ? What was the drama there? Because I'm sure.
Actually, interestingly, we had seen Blue Nile evolve in America.
Hmm.
When I was in 99 doing this thing in America,
Right.
my retailers were competing with Blue Nile, and that was a problem they had. My brother originally in 2000 started to build a business like Carrot Lane,
Okay.
and it was called Gemlinks.
Okay.
And he was doing that, but he was doing more on the B2B side
Understand.
and trying to do that. But he was way too early.
Hmm.
Matlab, he didn't know how to do fundraise, nothing else like that. I remember Arthur Anderson guys had called him at that point and said that, and I went with him for the meeting, and they said that, oh, it's a great category you're looking to do, and how much money would you like to raise? For the, can you imagine the money we asked for? $10,000.
What?
So, yeah.
$10,000.
Yeah, that's the money we asked for
Oh man.
on that. And they obviously realized we were not even serious and we didn't know what we were
ten
talking about,
thousand
and we
dollars.
left from there. And then so he sort of built that for a little bit, and then sort of nothing happened, dot-com bust happened, and by 2001, I think he shut it down. So I was there, and you sort of had that what it can do, but we didn't know how to execute it at that point. The Jaipur Gems business building in Chennai gave me a lot of confidence. I attended every single person who walked into the store, and I made every single piece of jewelry that I sold as well also.
Hmm.
And it really became a very popular luxury business over here. It used to bother me that everybody found me expensive. The reason they find me expensive is very simple because we dealt in extremely high quality raw material and wanted to build, big
Right.
pieces. So if you're going to do that, your ASP is obviously significantly higher. It's not like my margin is higher, but my ASP is a lot higher. And that's the business I was building. Very satisfying in terms of that everybody looks at that and can find a design language and can find and say, oh, I know that's a Jaipur Gems piece and so forth, and I knew who is who of the city and everything. That's how I met the
Hmm.
Sood and everybody else as well also on that. So when you build something like that, फिर लगता है next क्या? What more are you going to do as well? So I opened another store in Coimbatore, with a marquee store, absolutely stunning location, everything. And then you realize in the family कि भाई, at this pace, two stores have taken 7 years. So I'll be 70 by the time I have 10 stores. Just taking a simple math as
Yes.
well also on that part. But, that's not really satisfying at all. And if I really have the craft, then why am I not able to take it to a much wider audience? Why is it restricted to the high-end audience only at that point? And so there were many things playing at that point. This was one of the things playing. Um, I was really, really good at making stuff around solitaires and
Hmm.
making engagement rings and things like that. And that's something that I had really figured out very well. And I'd seen this play out in Blue Nile in America, and so that's how I figured it out. It's not something I was born with or something, but I sort of had a knack for it. And I thought that this could become a business in India. Yes, convincing family was just a very difficult part at that point. It was just not something my dad was ready for because, in his eyes, he's conservative and he's, Avnish has met him a few times. He's quite, yeah, my brother had gone through it, lost money as well also on that. And so he's like, this is nonsense. We're doing such a great job building the business in Chennai. Why would you want to move on from there? But there is always a thing ki, if you can't scale it and you can't see where it's going to scale, you're going to be stuck with it. The challenge is going to be there for that as well also. And somebody could build India's Blue Nile at that point. Frankly, that was a big thought at that point that we could do this in India as well also. And I spoke to Gopal about it, and it took me a year to convince him as to why it can happen and how it can happen. And the family was still not convinced, but Gopal at one point, because he saw a transaction happen with a friend of his where without seeing a diamond, without anything, that gentleman from San Francisco, based on a certificate, bought a $70,000 diamond from me at that point, from my retail business.
Wow. Okay.
And he was just, and you're talking about 2006, 7 at that point. It's a lot of money at that point as well.
It's a lot of money today
So
also, I don't think.
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it is an angel
Yes.
round. So, so this guy was doing this transaction. Gopal got convinced. My dad was still not and was not convinced at all. But I took the leap of faith and said, I'm going to do this and make it happen. When he discovered that obviously some money had been invested in this, I was hauled up to Bombay and I was blasted. I remember at that point, and really given a shelling. But you pander to the love of a parent and you sort of agree on a timeline. And the timeline agreed with him was 75 lakhs to 1 crore was stop loss amount and 4 years of my life. If these two things sort of happen, then let me do this. And it was a bit like that movie, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, right? And then my dad turns around and says, Simran, ji le teri
Right.
zindagi. One of that kind of stuff that happens on it. So one must know how to. One thing with parents always is that ultimately kids have their way.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you had your way. Um,
I had my way.
and
Yeah.
when did Avnish and you like meet? What year was that?
Actually, it was day one,
Okay.
2007. Avnish was the first person to join CaratLane, right? Guru Gopal and me wanted to start this at that point. And I met him. He was sitting in Gopal's conference room. Gopal's very established. He's II, IIT IIM, Avnish,
He was from
or
College of
Anna
BCE, Anna
University IIM.
University, and IIM Ahmedabad.
Ha, Anna University and IIM
And he was
Ahmedabad.
from SIFI, which was
And
one of the early internet pioneers
yeah,
in this country.
correct. He was the CEO of SIFI when
Oh,
it listed on NASDAQ
oh,
at that
wow.
point, So he was obviously pedigreed and he had just moved on to start his own business, listed technologies that he was building. So we were sitting in Lister's office and Avnish came in and, he was using headhunters to, the I had no idea how to deal with talent or even understand what to ask. I'm sitting over there and Avnish and me are same age, more or less. He's a year younger than me, but very similar, right? So we're sitting in that room and Avnish turns and asks me that, and he had met Gopal once before, I think,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And so in the second round, I'm meeting him as well. And he asked me, ki, you are also here for the interview. You
Have you guys
Group discussion hai kya?
have you seen that Spotify series on Daniel Lake? It's really good.
No.
So
Yeah.
it's almost a similar situation. There is a acquirer who comes into the conference room, and there's a young guy
Okay.
sitting there, and he goes and talks to him, thinking that he's the intern, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to make this offer," and etc. Because he knew the CEO and the intern will be there for the meeting. And then
Okay.
the door opens and the intern comes running in, and then he realizes that he was speaking to Daniel Eek only. So I realized that it's a very similar situation because we have all these, I think, psychological biases that the CEO is going to be an old guy. I think even Avnish may not have thought that. So it's funny.
I had seen Gopal. Gopal would be 10 years at least, Mithun, older. More.
नहीं नहीं यार. Yeah, 20
20, huh?
years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. More than 20. Gopal be more beyond 65.
So what did you say when Avnish asked you, have you come here
He
for
said,
the
I'm
for
here
the
to
role?
take the interview.
Yeah, but I was that's how we met, and
These
that's
must be pre LinkedIn. Obviously, there was. I think LinkedIn would have just started. They
Yeah.
must have raised a seed round then.
it was
There would be
pre-Facebook.
pre Facebook. There would be no way for Avnish to know how you looked, who you were. I'm sure.
No
Uh,
way. There was definitely the only coverage I had on the internet was about how Anjali, my wife, and me had met.
oh,
And that was the only coverage that the Hindu covered because she's a New York citizen living in Chennai. So
okay,
for them, it was so intriguing, to like, why did the New York girl move here? So that is the only
nice,
coverage I had ever had in the newspaper then.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So then you two meet. What happens then? Like,
Actually, it was early and it was very different back then. I had no idea on how it's going to work out, how it's going to get built. And to be honest, Avnish joined, and then there was a lady called Kalaivani who joined us as well. And they did most of the heavy lifting. And I took some time off at that point, along with what I was doing. I went and did an executive program at 1 year program at IIM Bangalore just to understand how am I even going to talk to him you know
okay,
matlab, how am I going to talk to all these guys and going to figure out because the only interaction I have is of two kinds. One is with customers,
hmm,
and second is with guys I work with in my store.
right,
And so it's very, very different as well altogether on that. And I
right.
remember one of those courses, I got so excited when, while we were working and trying to do whatever we were doing, I did a statistics class and I thought finally I might be able to talk to Avnish, and I called him after my class and I really think this is useful and all. And Avnish is his own style like तुम अभी statistics 101 पढ़ के आए हो.
Nice. Amazing. So you
Yeah,
went
so
literally to study so that you could build a team and have a conversation with Avnish, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, I think look, I don't think I learnt a lot in that
Hmm.
program
Okay.
as such, but yeah, I didn't. But I definitely got the confidence that there is, matlab, nobody's come from a different world.
Right.
Everybody's from the same world, at
Hmm.
least on that part. So, and I realized that the biggest value in IIMs, and no disrespect to them, they're great, incredible institutions, is the input that they have. It's that those people who come there are already very smart.
Right.
तभी वो वहाँ पहुंचे हैं उसमें. And because when you put people like me in the mix over there as well, also, it's not like I'm going to get a significantly better and come out. That didn't happen. It's just that my input was, I'm a poor input, so I came out poor. They are great inputs, they came out great. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I wouldn't say you're a poor input, but sure.
No, I mean, yeah, poorer input, yeah. So, yeah. Arjun might mentor me, so, so
Awesome.
uh,
So the early days, how was that? How was starting? You basically are in a situation where most people have just graduated from dial-up to probably broadband of some sort.
yeah,
Um, like, how are you even thinking of selling stuff online? And can you talk through the
yeah,
early journey? And you have this timeline over your head as well.
yeah.
What's going on there?
That
Um,
that timeline though was only known to me. I didn't let anybody else get a sense of the
okay,
timeline
okay,
because timelines are a lot about pressure,
right.
and my whole business was about delivering against timeline. So I could deal with it, but I know that giving it to anybody else is not an easy job in itself. So I have never ever transferred that across in life. Avnish, you want to talk about the early days?
So actually, Aviral, if we had gone to a VC, then he would have asked us a couple of questions, right? He would have asked us about a go-to market.
Hmm.
Honestly, there was no go-to market.
Okay. Or
Okay.
there was no market only, so you could not
Yeah, and there
go
was
to
no market
anything.
and there was no go-to market.
There was no go
Okay.
to.
We were just, kind of working on getting this up and running, literally, which meant that we needed to get and the focus initially was on selling solitaires. So there is this whole solitaire supply chain, right? The tech integration of that, so that we could put up a website where you could search and see a couple of lakh stones. That was like the number one priority, and work had already started because Gopal used to run a software company. So there was a between Gopal and Mithun, they had agreed on a few things, and then I added a few things on that in terms of the scoping and requirements. And then we started to kind of work on putting the other pieces to make this business possible, which is to get a payment gateway, to get a the website, other pieces, content, the logistics partner, people to handle the call center. So in a way, we were just working on the part of fulfilling the business, that you had a website and you could have logistics. There was no thought at that point in time that how would like a marketing or a business plan on the selling side look like, saying that how do we get to 1 crore of sales. There was no thinking at that time. And that was the part of the ignorance I told you, right? That if I had known too much about it, then I would have worried and possibly thought of it otherwise. But not knowing anything about it, we just thought, okay, boss, this itself is so hard. It almost it took us a year to get this up and running, and largely because of the website part. And we were building on this thing called OS Commerce. Again, I had no clue. Later, I found out there was this thing called Magento, which was supposed to be faster. But again, because I was not a technology person, I didn't even know whether I should ask these people why are we doing OS Commerce and not Magento. But we used to keep just working on it. So a typical day, and initially CaratLane was not even incorporated. So I in fact used to go and sit in the lister office,
Hmm.
spend some time with the tech people in the morning. कि क्या हो रहा है, progress, some timeline, are we closer to launch? Then you would call people randomly, like to get a logistics person, you would call everybody, Blue Dart, Gati, DTDC, कोई तो मान जाए, and they would just laugh कि ये क्या बोल रहे हैं लोग, मतलब what is this jewelry business and online, and nobody wanted to touch us. Then in the evening I would go to Jaipur Gems, hang around in the store to see how does this jewelry business work. And I would chat with Mithun and Kalai also. When she joined, she would also come along. We were just trying to get a sense ki boss, because I had never bought jewelry in my life, so I had no clue what a jewelry customer was like. Kalai obviously had bought a little more, but we had no clue about this solitaire and this diamond thing, because nobody in India had it. It was not a market which existed. So for the first 1 year just went like this, and there was no thinking on how would the business scale up once
Right.
infra was in place, what a marketing plan would look like. We didn't hire a marketing person, we just thought ki hum hi log kar lenge types. uh, because you didn't understand the challenge. I'm sure today if you a business like this was starting, I think 50% of the conversation would be on scale,
And
marketing
GTM,
effectiveness,
exactly,
CAC,
exactly.
GTM. A CAC whack ka to term, we didn't even know that there was a term like that, right? But that was the level of ignorance, collective ignorance, which all of us had, right? We got an agency also, so they also went in their other tangent. These really creative people. Uh, we used to just every day go and look at Blue Nile, and we were literally trying to create a clone of them from a website point of view. That was
Hmm.
the creativity we had on that part, honestly. We used to wonder कि ये ब्लू नाइल वाले लोग भी जरूर देखते हैं कि चेन्नई से कौन इतने सारे लोग एवरी डे दे लॉग इन एंड दे नेवर बाय और एनीथिंग.
Those things used to bother us.
Yeah. There's really big problem, yaar, Mithun. Come on. Like, what if they find out?
And
Yeah.
another thing was,
Access बंद कर देंगे तो क्या होगा? पूरे pages
and our
देखे नहीं
market,
हमने.
uh, and
They were
marketing.
your design agency, actually.
Yeah, they were literally our design
Uh,
agency. And when we used to make one or two changes, right, where we would to feel very good ki actually this we have kind of Indianized
Yeah,
or
Blue Nile.
localized it, and that was the extent of our originality. Then we got this lady who had studied from Parsons School of Design. She also came through a network, and she said okay, she will help us with the design. She just came with these very very radical views in our mind to change things. We were not ready for that, so we used to argue with her also. तो ऐसे ना, there was no cohesive clarity in our mind कि this is the path to take, because nobody knew any better. And I think, I don't know Mithun, whether when you set up Jaipur Gems, what was your marketing plan? Because I think कि उस समय हमारा सारा focus ही यही था to just get this thing up and running.
yeah.
And we just hoped कि एक बार बन जाएगा तो लोग आने लगेंगे types. Possibly we thought of it like a shop only in that sense.
Yeah,
You know
build a product.
the mistake I think early stage, and I tell you, is that when you open a shop, people walk in. It's a shop, and if people see something interesting, they walk in, and then whether it works or not, you start getting feedback from that point of view. You open a website, people don't walk in. You have to make people come in as well also. The mistake we all make often is that just because we build it, we think it's our birthright that customers will come and buy. And that birthright works a little bit in shops and works a little better if you have better location as well also. But the internet's a whole. I mean, there is no reason why anybody will come to you, and there's no birthright to winning anything. You might have the best website, the best product, the best price, but if you're not discovered, you're nothing on this. Whereas a shop is a physical presence, and it's very, very different at that point over there. So I don't think that we had a clue at that point of what we were doing. We were just building, and we were building थिंक कि खुल जाएगा उस दिन लोग आएंगे उसके अंदर, एंड लोग नहीं आए, so लेकिन हमने खोल दी दुकान, we worked on it and we did all that stuff and we sort of opened the shop and we got there. But obviously we didn't get people in. But Gopal had some view about fundraise and things like that, and we learned so much from him about those things because we were very, very new at that point as well, also. And those were very interesting days. But one thing we understood well, and that 1 crore which was there in my mind, कि कुछ ना कुछ करके cash flow तो create करना पड़ेगा इसमें, because we might be very early, and even if we are early, it'll take time to build it, and that cash flow, how do we create? So the power of the invented, it took us some time. I met Bhaskar when I was doing this executive MBA thing at IIM Bangalore. Bhaskar came to give a guest lecture. He was the MD of Titan at that point.
Okay.
And so, I spoke and I connected, and Professor J. Ramchandran had connected as well also. Gopal knew of Bhaskar because he was one batch senior junior from IIM. So they sort of knew each other as well also. Gopal, I think, was a batch senior to him. And one of Gopal's board members and Bhaskar were good friends as well also. So ये सब connection कर करके we somehow reached him as well. And we told him that, look, you can't sell solitaires in your shops at all because of these problems. Our internet-based technology can come in your stores as a website,
Wow.
and we can power and train everybody how to sell this. It took 6 months or 1 year almost to convince them, and we got started with it after a year. And they did a pilot at 12 stores. And I remember going to, I think we trained all those 12 stores in one location, if I'm not mistaken, in Bangalore or somewhere we trained them. But it was so powerful for those 12 stores that the pilot became 50 stores in almost no time. And that's how we got off and running on this thing. And we built the entire business on those fumes.
So you were a B2B
where
SaaS company for Titan. Is that
a B2B, not a SaaS really, because we never told them who the supplier was.
right? Okay.
So we were the supplier,
Okay.
right? So we were a merchandise company, not a
Merchandise.
SaaS company.
You were
And
B2B.
yeah, so we were doing their B2B2C in that sense on that. But we were learning how these things happen, how people sell without having. And so the first true Omni was getting visible to us of what these things will play out like as well also. So we were building this out, and over a period of time, we learned how to manage that, and we built a very good cash flow in that. Because what we were doing was that we convinced them it's not a buying tool for them, it's a selling system that we've come with. And that really was what it was, because this website with their branding was sitting in their stores, and those people could choose, they would get visibility of diamonds from all over the world, real time over there in their, like almost like, how if you imagine a travel agent used to sell a clear trip, I mean, Make My Trip travel agent would sell tickets when you walked into his those small Make My Trip shops in 2008 9. I don't know whether you guys know this, 2009 10, sorry. And there was such a lag also between, if let's say a customer comes with a specific requirement, I want a 1 carat stone. By the time the boutique will call their head office, the head office will call the dealers will get back to the customer, and the customer wants an answer right now when he's in the shop. So, Manab, there was such a lag that there was inertia, and the sales guy said, this is not our business only. We don't want to sell solitaires in these stores. So, we had now come up with a system which enabled them to do what they could otherwise not do. And so, it worked really, really well for them, the selling system. And, we took off from there, and, we built a business in which they would pay us in 10 days, and we would pay our vendors in 60 days. So, we had a 50-day free float that we built the entire rest of CaratLane on.
And see, after we started, right, after the website got up and running, so obviously there was a consumer business also which we were trying to build. So we started doing the regular stuff, Google ads and all. And wo bhi na, there was no performance marketing expert. Okay. So what were CPS, CPC, ये सब was all like, yeah, Kalai, because she had worked in a startup, which was a technology startup selling in the US. She had a little more clue. So we got somebody
Yeah.
through a reference also, but we were just trying to get a sense, and slowly, we used to get 1 or 2 calls in a day on our call center, and then I would take the call myself, right? Din bhar, what would you do, right? There was not after that so much work to be done, and we would try and convince, and we would literally go to every extent possible to try and convince that customer to sell. So I'll give you one example of a story. In fact, this was not even through our own call center. This was a lady who came to Jaipur Gems to buy a pair of solitaires for her daughter in Australia. And thanks to Mithun, they passed lead to us. So I went and met that lady, and I took that lady to 4 jewelry stores in Chennai, where we looked at the quality and the pricing available over there. And then I showed her how our pricing was much superior. Even then, she was not convinced. So I spoke to her daughter in Australia, and after like 1 week, 1 week is typically the amount of time people spend on closing multi-million-dollar enterprise deals.
Right.
But I was trying to close like a 2 lakh order, which went on for a week. But that is what it took. And then I went and delivered this to her house with a bouquet and chocolates and everything. One order, okay. I spent, I'm sure, money on a taxi fare also. And that's how we used to get one order. But I think, we had not read about
घंटी बजती थी.
घंटी नहीं थी, but दिमाग में ऐसा लगता था कि oh god, we got one order today.
नहीं नहीं, बाद में that also happened, no?
हाँ,
We used to ring a bell every time an order was done.
yeah. So the point was, no, that later obviously I read that startups think like this, that how do you get your first 10, then your 100, your 500 and your 1000. We had not read about it, so none of us knew. But subconsciously, that was what we were trying to do. Ki literally go and do whatever it takes. And I can't tell you, as in personally, that is when I learned one thing about being an entrepreneur or somebody who works in a startup. You lost all sense of shame. Okay. इसके पहले, you would be very very, you would not go and ask anybody for anything because you would feel very very conscious, right, कि मांग कैसे लें. उसके बाद ना, I had no shame. Literally, I would, like, if there was a Mausi whose family में ना, or who's getting children getting married, right, there was no way she would not buy. Like, I would literally pain everybody I would know whose family, friends. Like, I wrote mails to the entire batch, like every friend, right, and you would chase them. So I think at least in the first 100 orders, I would say at least 40, 50 of them would have come from family, friends, or Jaipur Gems ka contact, or somebody who came to buy something else in Jaipur Gems or came to Mithun or Kalai, and we would just like, कि अब लग जाओ इसके पीछे. So, but ऐसे कर करके ना, and then I think a lot of these people told other people, because the product quality was good, the pricing was good, the design was good, and we were seeing at that very very tiny scale people coming back. Okay. So on the consumer side, this was very slow traction building. Okay. But I think everybody who was buying was having a good experience and they liked the product. But we were, जो भी, मतलब, the pipeline was this tiny thing, but we would go very hard after it.
You know, हमने एक दुकान खोली. Literally, अगर आप देखोगे ना इस जर्नी को, and the only thing stayed consistent with everything we have done till now, Aviral, is our ambition. कि next क्या है?
Right.
And almost asking each other what is next. And I think that what is next became more relevant when after 2016, when Avnish was back, and that what is next has just helped us figure out what are we going to be next like. And we have evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved from a shop into today possibly the largest omni business in this space, and possibly one of the better run omni businesses in India itself also. But that's just because we are very ambitious about it, and at the same time we are massively realist about what we do. We have no air about कि क्या हो गया है, क्या बन गया है, क्या नहीं है, because when we started we knew nothing.
Right.
And even today we don't feel by any means that we have arrived anywhere, and the journey ahead is still very exciting, but there's a lot to do and there's a lot of opportunity, and there's an opportunity to, like in software services, India rules the world. In diamond and jewelry, while we're the back end of the world, there's an opportunity to be the front end to the world as well also. like the software services, India will have certain businesses in which there will be strengths. And jewelry, gems and jewelry is one category where we are naturally very strong. The back end is owned by this country. 9 out of 10 diamonds are
Right.
sold, which means that 90% of diamond jewelry sold anywhere in the world has an Indian touch into it. And touch is the largest raw materials where the value is created on that part. But if you look at the gross margin, we don't even capture 8-9% of the global gross margin. And it's time that we go after
Mm,
capturing a lot more of that. And,
right.
we are ambitious towards building that now. Yeah.
So you spoke about like, and Mazin, you can add. You spoke about the 0 to 1
Yeah.
journey. What was 1 to 10, and then onwards? And also, I think now, Mithun, you are going to cross that timeline with your dad. I recall you telling me that you got a term sheet
Yeah.
just a few months before your
Yeah,
deadline.
yeah. Actually, a year before that, the pain had begun for me at least at home. And Avnish might remember this that almost every week we'd go to Bombay and meet these VCs, and Nexus and Sherpalo and back in the day there were all these fancy names. Other than Axel, pretty much we met everybody. Somehow we never went to Bangalore. We went to Bangalore and met IDG, but we didn't meet Axel for some reason. And nothing, and we had some of these guys from US also who were down, but it wasn't going anywhere. The closest we got to was with Nexus, and we really thought that we'll sign. But for 6 months, it kept going on. They're like, great progress, come next month. And every time I'd go there to make a pitch and a presentation, how we're doing with work, etc. One day I'd see, the Mintra guy is trying to raise money. One day I'd see somebody else. One day I'd see Flipkart. One day I'd see, Urban Touch and many companies which don't even exist anymore, Common Floor, etc. On that. So I would see different guys, same story for everybody. We'd go on back and forth and do that. I think our life really changed when I remember getting a inward in mail from on LinkedIn from Lee Fixel, and which
Okay.
said that hi, I'm Lee Fixel, and I represent Tiger Global Management. I manage 13-14 billion dollars of assets, and whatever. I have seen what you guys are building, and we have interest, and we've invested in these businesses in India, etc. I frankly didn't reply to him because when I went up,
Why?
there was no website called Tiger Global Management. So I thought it's like some Nigerian scam or something like that, So, you know, I've been going for 1 year every single day to, these VCs every single week, and I'm not getting anything. And here is a guy who writes to me and wants to give me money as well. So,
Oh man, that is so funny.
yeah.
You thought Leaf Excel.
Yeah, I did. I told Lee later that as well also. We have a great relationship now. But I told him that. And so I didn't reply. And then later on, Tiger Global funded Flipkart Mintra and it started coming in the news. A week later or 10 days later, it came up as well. And I missed that trip of his. And then I wrote to him saying that, hey, I am available to chat, whatever. And I missed the first time that we were supposed to meet, but he was kind enough and we set up another meeting, which we were doing in Delhi then after that. And I went to Delhi to see him, and I swear it's the first time I didn't have to explain to somebody the business. Somebody knew everything that we were doing. They had done all the homework on our numbers. They knew what we were doing B2B, everything whatsoever. And an hour's conversation. And I remember very clearly before me, Sumit Jain or Common Floor had gone in, and he came back smiling, and I didn't know whatever that smile was because you don't meet a guy in one time and nothing happens really. But I went in, and I left from there with a term sheet for with a little negotiation. I was looking for $1 million from Nexus, and I left with $6 million over here. And so I left with the term sheet at that point, and I came back, and Gopal wouldn't believe it. He said, no, there must be something really wrong with this. How is that possible? To verify this, Gopal and me went to New York to see that Tiger Global
What?
Management exists. There's an office over there, you know. So we went to 401 Park Avenue to see their office and verify that it's there. We met him. He was kind enough. He didn't take any offense. He introduced us to Chase Coleman as well over there, and then to Julian Robertson as well at that point because he was there in office that day. And the same night we flew back because our agenda was only to see that this is for real or not. We don't want to get stuck in some
Oh my
FEMA case or
God.
something like that at that point.
This is what year? 2011?
2011. And
Insane.
I come back and Lee says, okay, why don't you also meet Axel? Uh, we work with them closely on every other deal. And if it works for you guys, we'd love to have them in as well. So we do 5 and they do 1 million. I met Subrata, great guy. I'm very happy to meet him actually. Then I went for another meeting with Prashant, Subrata, all of them. And I remember I asked him for a reference. And I went to meet Sachin and Binny in their office. And I asked them, what is the sequence? And I remember, I think Sachin said or Binny said, one of them said that they got Axel first and they got later after that. And one of them passing said that, yeah, but if you have Tiger, then why do you need Axel? Um, they didn't elaborate more on it, but I took the answer saying that, if you have a guy sitting in America who's going to write your next check, why do you need a guy sitting in India who's not going to write the big checks anyways also on that? And so I declined Axel. And I told
Hmm.
Lee that I'd rather just take your money and do that. But if that means you want to give me 5, you give 5. Don't give 6 as well, and we'll prorate. He said, no, I'll give 6, and we went on. That became Tiger Global's only investment where only they were involved the first time. Um, and that's how we began. And $6 million changes your life from that point on. The only sad part at that point was that Avnish wanted to move out of Chennai. And I tried really hard to convince him, and he wouldn't even believe in ESOPs at that point. And so, so we decided to sort of go to I go to Delhi for a few years. Yeah. But, it was great because in a few years he learned a lot more skill set and he came back and we opened our office in Bombay and did that. And we raised a couple of more rounds from Tiger Global. Business kept growing steadily. We had grown it to a reasonable size, about 100 odd crores of revenue by 2015-16, when Tiger had put 30 million. And, every time we raised money, I would go to Titan and ask if they want to put money in the business as well, also through these common connects that we had. And you know the role that money plays in all of this cannot be discounted at all, but the corrupting role of money also should also be spoken about in all this. At least
Right.
50% of the funds that I spent, um, or at least 25% of the funds that I spent, I must have spent in pressure of timeline or pressure of seeing that somebody else is doing something. And I would not have done that naturally at that point.
You had competition by then, right?
Yeah,
Bluestone
yeah.
and
Axel went
others by
next week itself
2015.
and funded Bluestone. I mean, they basically, it was a team called
Oh,
chuckpuck.com that they had. And that business wasn't going anywhere. So they sort of put that founder and another person from CKC, which is a famous jewelry shop, and put together a team and seed funded them to do this business. Rightly so. I mean, they obviously saw the opportunity as well in it and they sort of funded the team. And that's what the competition was. But it wasn't just that competition. In a Tiger portfolio, you're also competing for Lee's mind space with every other company in the thing as well, also. And so you're
hmm.
looking at every other company and saying, hey, how do I become that company's backing? Because you understand that in a fund, in out of the 10 businesses, there are only two which is going to look to constantly keep funding. And Flipkart was a clear favorite over there. But you want to be in the next two, three at least so that you don't become the last five on this. In I joke with my kids that when a dog is running behind you at some time in life, you'll have to figure this out also. I heard this from somewhere else, which I told you about earlier. And so I was joking with them. But in a VC funded business, you have to be in the top five. And that pressure also is there at that point. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with competitive set, and we possibly burn 25%, at least 25% of the fundraise and things we should have never done with very low conviction across as well. But we learned so much from Tiger
Hmm.
Global about, how do you think through the business? How do you build scale? What are the metrics you look at? What's the dashboard you look at as well? And they had a team that worked brilliantly with us on building the dashboard. Kalyan used to lead that team at that point. And so Kalyan played a vital role in sort of helping us come up with the right kind of dashboard and building everything out. Possibly, their journey of 4 years with us, we grew 10x at that point with them. And it was a fantastic ride while doing that. The only disconnect in that whole thing was that Lee was very uncomfortable with the omni nature of the business. We never used to call it omni back then. We didn't know the term. But, opening up
Hmm.
stores, and that
Yeah.
was not something that they had seen success with anywhere. And in a way, they were fighting that somewhere else as well also. We sort of were feeling that, opening more stores is going to get challenging as well at that point, even though he had just funded us for that as well. And one day, Bhaskar had come to our office and he loved what he saw. He felt the energy was very different. It was very new as compared to whatever was happening in Titan. And he felt it was a lot like Titan in its very early days as well, also on that kind of energy. And so he said, "Look, we'd love to be a partner to this." And we sort of 2016 things fell in place and we made that happen. So the 1 to 10 journey really happened with Tiger Global. We worked really, really well with them and did that part. We really wanted them to stay with like 26% equity and hang around and do that part. But for them, it was very clear that if a strategic comes in, then they don't want to be around at that. And so they sort of exited at that point. Yeah.
Understand. And so then after that, um, I think it's a very interesting situation because you're basically now Titan is a majority
Yeah.
shareholder, right, in this
Yeah.
situation, and they already have Tanishq in their
Yeah.
portfolio. Now they have you, so you go from competing for um, being the biggest internet company both internally for Tiger as well as in India to now competing internally with Tanishq. How was that? And after that too, you had gone to a very large scale for a consumer company in India, but from there onwards also you have grown super fast. So how was that? What was the journey? What are some misconceptions people hold? I know you kind of talked about this earlier, but misconceptions people hold about that phase of your journey as well.
A lot of people wrote us off at that point, and they said its business is over, and now
Hmm.
Tata's have taken over, and this founding team is sort of finished, and whatever it was. And for us, it was
Right.
about, and we were very ecstatic about the partnership when it happened. But when I would talk to people and see, and I remember speaking to, people obsess about transactions instead of obsessing about what is the outcome of a transaction. एंड इट्स लाइक गाड़ी खरीदी कितने में खरीदी ये नहीं गाड़ी करेगी क्या आपकी लाइफ में वो हाँ so
Right.
they obsess about the wrong things in life, and many of my VC friends, I call them friends now, I don't need their money, so they would like, oh yeah, only that much, and okay, now what, the journey is over, sort of thing. We were never written about, never spoken about, nothing ever happened after 2016. So it was like as if we took a deep dive in a swimming pool and now we will come out at the finish line only. And that's literally what happened. But in underwater, what we were doing was not visible to anybody. And, so we were basically building this whole thing out. That the We were clear at that point that we had figured our model out. We knew that Omni is the way for us to go. The plan we presented was 25 stores a year that we're going to build, and we're going to build that part. Maybe, we got sharper and sharper with the integration of Omni as time went by, but at least that it's going to be Omni was very clear to us as well. We had seen success in 14, 15 tremendously with what we were building in Bangalore with that part. And failures in 11, 12 also in Delhi and Hyderabad because the stores were incorrectly designed around it. So you should go to a strategic only when you figured all this out, because they don't have the appetite to be able to build ground up because they are in that quarter to quarter revenue kind of a thing. And though Titan protected us tremendously from that, they didn't even, they were not kind of putting up pressure on us. So, of that nature, at least of quarter to quarter revenue, uh, which had to be delivered, shown to the stock exchanges or to the public at large, at least. Only a year later, they started showing that part of it. Um, but because we knew what we were doing and we knew what help we were seeking, we realized over a period of time that they have their own set of problems to solve, and we have to figure out our own set of problems to do it ourselves. Um, the best thing that happened, Bhaskar gave us at that point was CaratLane and Tanishq partnership. We said, okay, this is what we'll take and sort of build from this point on. But we could not work with the factories or things like that, but we could work with the partners, franchises. It's not like we couldn't work, it's just that our model was not suitable. It was more suitable for what they were doing as well. And we were able to work with the franchisees, we were able to work with a bunch of other stuff, and so we really enjoyed that, and we sort of made the most of what we could do with all of that as well. So that really helped us scale our business significantly. And from 2016 to 2021, from 100 and 120 130 crore consumer revenue, we end 22 at 2000 odd crores of consumer revenue on that. We learned a lot about how to manage our cost. How do we do that? Because we were very clear we don't want to do a fundraise after a point. 2018, we had a tough fundraise of 99 crores with Titan, and we realized very different. In a VC world, it's very different. In a strategic world, it's very different. And I decided for myself, at least, that day I'll never raise money again for this. And then you put your head down and you sort of figure out how is it going to happen and how are we going to make that do. And debt was available to us. And we really worked hard on it, and we sort of figured out how our business model should be so that we can scale things up and we become profitable. The next year itself, you see massive profitability around it, because that's the operating leverage we had built in this business as well. And just going pin code by pin code and building this thing out, which Avnish can do a significantly better job talking about. We focused to make sure that our merchandise always stood out. We focused to make sure that our omni strategy was better than anything else which was happening around, because we were not doing TV ads, etc., in that manner. At some point, we will do, but at that point, at least, we were not doing that. We made sure that tech had a role to expand our reach at various places, and we were doing that part. And because we didn't want to do a fundraise, our cash flow understanding was better than most people's was. And these became pillars of, or at least I call it the learnings. Avnish will have his own share as well of learnings from that. But these four things became, I feel, are the a big part of over and above the team that makes things happen, and the Tanishq partnership and all of those things. Over and above that, these are the four other things that really made the business go from this 10 to 100 at this point where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the 0 to 1 journey was the journey up to 2010 types, before the Tiger funding happened, right? Where we had reached like 10, 12 crores of annual revenue. Then I think the next journey was, the journey to, I would say, up to 150 crores, because that was when Titan came in. And then I think the next stage of the journey, I would say, is still last year, FY21. In this journey, if you ask me, one very interesting thing happened, that when I came back to CaratLane, right? Actually, I had no role, because that's another story for another time. How I came back, we just had a chat and then we spoke and we said, "ठीक है." So there was no role, because everybody was there for everything, and as in when you get a slightly senior person, you have to give them a particular role, right? But because I had trust with Mithun, we had stayed in touch. So we said, "ठीक है." So when we came back, right, I had no job to do. So you would look at everything and say, अच्छा ऐसे क्यों हो रहा है, ये क्या है, वगैरह वगैरह. So one of the things which we noticed was that our analytics was not so strong at that time. So we just got some 3-4 analysts and all, and we just started looking at every data, every decision which was being made in the company, and starting to challenge it, right? And wahan se I think, and I would say, even as compared to the first and the second stages, I think one thing which has changed, and now it's a very, very fundamental cultural pillar in this organization, is the this, I would say, very, very high level of objectivity. I would not call it just data dependency, because when you say data, you just mean Excel sheets, right, or analytics. But it is to basically say कि let's keep questioning everything. ऐसा margin क्यों है, ये pricing क्यों है, ये marketing ऐसा क्यों है. A lot of things, people were doing, because we had gotten experts from more traditional organizations, I would say, that we would do things in a certain way. And then we just said, no, if we don't have evidence for it, then we will not do it. We will not go with anything saying aisa hota hai, right? Yeah, this is how it is done. So if you can't just tell me that TV advertising works. And we used to do a lot of TV advertising at one point in time. And then we just started saying ki, if you can't show me evidence, and evidence doesn't mean the evidence should only show up in Google Analytics. Show me qualitative analytics. Talk to customers and show me evidence. We used to do these surveys and ask people who would walk into our stores कि आप क्यों आए, right? And वहाँ पे भी that if the data was not showing कि they came because they saw the TV ad, then we said, boss, it's not helping us anymore, so let's stop it. So and I think we have had, I would say, reasonable amount of courage in this organization, that a lot of decisions which we have made over the years, especially in phase 3 and phase 4, are not the typical decisions which most companies would have taken. But I think as a group, we were brave enough to make some of those choices. I'll give you another story. One year we had this very terrible situation where 90% of the product team was poached, literally, right? Um, you know, there are enough companies which hired away our people. We were just left with 2 people in the product team. That year we said कि अब ऐसे कैसे चलेगा? We used to hire typically same types, right? IIT, IIM, from other internet organizations. So then we said, boss, let's just stop this because these people ask for a lot of money. Okay. Second, these people, think that we are like the stepping stone to a FANG job. So
Right.
we would have this problem that we would want our product people to go spend time in the stores, but they would say कि नहीं ये AI नहीं use कर रहे हैं, ML नहीं use कर रहे हैं, recommendation engine नहीं बना रहे हैं, right? Which is typically what they would want, right? If they were thinking
Right.
building a resume for FANG. So we said एक तो ये, then obviously they would ask for a lot of money and our whole salary structure was breaking. So we just said, let's just stop doing this. We will only hire based on attitude, if I can say that. And this was heavily influenced by Moneyball. Okay. So we said we'll hire more people. Let's make sure that we build a pipeline. It will take some time, and we'll find ways of coaching, mentoring these people, and we'll find people who actually are going to enjoy being present with customers in the stores, etc. And it worked out in so many ways. The product team has the lowest attrition in this company. We don't hire anybody from IIT IM, and with no disrespect to you or anybody else.
No, that's okay. I understand it completely.
Yeah. And they are so awesome because now you will see that they are like, literally they spend more time with customers, with people in the stores and in the FCs, and not just sitting in the office and trying to build this cool feature. So the role of the product team, and not only the construction and the hiring of the product team, has changed. And these are just two examples where
Right.
you would and I can tell you that there was a time around 2017-18 where Bluestone, for example, went and had 20 people from IIM and ISB. And you can look at all the other startups, right, which raise money. The first thing which they do is that they will get a nice office, they will do a TV campaign, and they will hire 50 people from IIT, IIM, etc., etc., right? So we did none of those things because ये जो कीड़ा आ गया, right, कि if I don't have evidence, then we will not do it. And it is not just for functions like product and marketing. This was the same approach for things like creative, VM, brand, design, everything.
Understand. No, awesome. I think great way to end our episode. We'll just ask the two final questions, each of you. If you could give a quick but brutal observation on this. What's some unfiltered feedback you've received in your journey? Some anecdote, some situation that comes to mind, which really changed your perspective. I'm sure you must have got a lot of it, but one which would stand out. One piece of unfiltered feedback. And whoever has an answer can go
I'll
first.
go.
It's fine.
Um,
Yeah.
I still remember in 2017, I was really struggling. I was struggling with the Titan relationship a little bit because I had far more expectations of, the factory working for us, the supply chain working for us, and it was all coming from a very different quarter. It was my expectation, not their promise, where everything was coming. And I
Right.
had two very different conversations. One, and it's framed and kept in my room, was I went for dinner with Irina Vittal. And, Irina, I thought I'm having dinner with her, and she's a Titan board member. But more importantly, Irina is just so powerful in the way she thinks, etc. And I thought it's going to be great. And I was focused on helping Titan, like we were doing Titan I Plus for them, building, making it omni, digital, etc., all that stuff. So I go, and Irina says, "So, Are you done doing all this charity business of yours of working on different things for Titan? I said, what do you mean? She says that when the quarter ends, I'm going to be on the other side asking you about the performance of your business, not about the charity that you did everywhere else. And at that point, let me warn you that things are not going to look great, because you can sit and tell me that this is why this didn't happen and that didn't happen, but it's only because you're not focused on the problem you actually came to solve. And she put my head back right in
Hmm.
place and sort of made me focus on it. And at the back of
Amazing.
that dinner, we did a 2-year plan over dinner of how things will happen and how I need to think about things and sort of make that happen. That portfolio analysis she made me do and sort of build that out. I've always framed that and kept that on my table, and it's been important to me. And the second one was at dinner with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, when I went and told him, look, I don't know if what should I do? I'm stuck at this place, and my co-founder at that point, Gopal, felt that we should sell and move on. And he convinced me, along with two of his friends, Ramdev Agarwal and somebody else who I don't want to name, uh, where they convinced me that why compounding this now is a much better opportunity and going through that pain than thinking about starting something from scratch at that point. I went there with this thought process, and I ended up buying Gopal's equity out by taking debt. Um, and that was a big game changer for me in life, personally as well. Also,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mithun, Avnish. A wonderful conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. I think Mazin as well. We hope you did too. Um, Thank you everyone for tuning in.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you
Thanks a
for having
lot. It
us,
was fun